Hello everyone and welcome to our final segment here on today's edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. And like Andre alluded to, we're going to be talking about some nice prop bets for tomorrow night's game. There are a lot of interesting storylines with these prop bets as well, and a lot of really out there bets that I really liked as well. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting off with perhaps the chalk pick, let's say. Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown score. This one seems pretty easy to me. And minus 125. Taking advantage, if you're a player of Tyreek Hill's caliber, of that depleted secondary, is second nature. And he might not even have the best of games. He might be quiet like he was against Jacksonville. But one play can change the whole situation. One play will change that. And Mike McDaniel must be foaming at the mouth to have the opportunity to take advantage of this defense, because he probably won't get this opportunity ever again. As Andre, fantastic commenter today, my commenter of the day, if that was an award. Wilson for Rice. Isn't that crazy, Rice? I kind of want to offer it and see what the guy says, LOL. It is kind of crazy. I believe you're talking about Garrett Wilson and Rashee Rice. It is kind of crazy. I like that you're considering these very different trades. I love that you're taking advantage of the volatility of the market. But Wilson for Rice, I do want clarification whether you are getting Rice or he is getting Rice, because I do remember you saying that you had Rice, but I just want to double check with you. But I think that is a very crazy trade, because both of these guys are young guys, right? And both of these guys are trying to be the guy in their offense with two very experienced quarterbacks. So it's a very interesting trade. But then again, it's a 1-for-1 trade. You wouldn't be too mad about it later in the season if you look back on it in hindsight and be like, the Wilson for Rice trade, it won't necessarily get your goat later in the season. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that one of these guys could perform bad and it could lead to your detriment, but I don't necessarily think it will overwhelm your team negatively or positively. So it's still a trade that I respect, and I definitely respect the fact that the trade stems from a point of, as Andre clarifies, he beginning Rice. So yeah, I definitely think it's going to stem from a point of, you feeling bad about it, because either of these guys could be bad, either of these guys could be good, but it's not necessarily a consequence. But this one could be, because he also talks about the stack of Chase Wilson more or Jefferson Wilson. I like Jefferson Wilson more. It's a simple one because of all the chaos of Chase and Wilson. I think that if you don't accept that trade and it's Jefferson and Wilson who you're comfortable with, then that would be the pick for me. But I do like the prospects of a Jefferson Rice stack right there. That one could be good, because both of those guys are guys who, yes, they might have some games where they might be a little bit off, but if they can maintain what they have going with their offenses, then that's a very potent fantasy wide receiver room right there. Let's talk about prop bets as well. Tyreek Hill, anytime TD score, book it. I think that's the simplest one, especially looking like what I said. Keep reiterating it. The Bills' depleted secondary. If you are more ambitious and you want a very crazy one as well, as Andre also says, I have Olave as well. I want to trade him. Now, that can go many ways, because Olave is not someone who I believe will have a good fantasy season. So you might have to package Olave with someone, and you might have to give up a lot more if you do feel like Rice is a guy that can really help your receiving room. I think that if you were to give up Chase and Olave, I wouldn't be mad at it, mainly because of Chase's contract situation, and I just don't think Olave has the same luster he had in the Saints offense as last year, because, as you saw, albeit against the Panthers, they utilized so many different weapons there. So, if you want to trade Olave, be my guest, because I think that he will be someone who I'm not as high on. Olave Montgomery for a monster receiver or running back, says Andre. I think that could work, because both of those guys in a package deal could be more appealing than, say, just swapping like for like Olave for someone else. That could work a lot. And I think that with all your trades, I love what you're thinking about in the future. I love that you're really tinkering with different position groups, and I most like that you already like that. As Andre thanks me for all the help. Thank you for all the comments, Andre. You have been one of the better commenters of the day here on the show and of the week as well. I appreciate your engagement in the world of fantasy football. Really keeps me as well kind of updated on the pulse of different leagues around me. So thank you so much. Let's get into something that you also alluded to, the prop bets as well. If, like I said, you are of the ambitious type, Dalton Kincaid for the first touchdown, minus 1,500, is my bold bet that I really liked, was struck by, and wanted to bring to your attention. Another one, I think that this might be his ultimatum right here. Olave Montgomery for Cup, says Audrey as well. That could be interesting as well. I think that Cup definitely gives you value, at least for this couple of weeks. We'll have to see when Puka Nacua comes back how the target share will play out. But at the end of the day, I'm not mad at that trade. I'm not mad at anyone trying to experiment to better their team. And you have a solid team to really build around. So kudos to you for all the different trade options that you bring to my attention and for being ambitious in terms of what you are doing in the open market and fantasy. But Dalton Kincaid, in terms of prop betting, is someone who I think is not necessarily going to be a popular bet, as Bijan and Brees are so hard to get in his league, says Andre. Yeah, I think so too. It's always hard to get a running back in terms of, any league. I think that my running backs are also a weak point in my league as well. I have right now James Cook and DeAndre Swift, and I wish I didn't. But I think it will be hard for me to get someone really good because of the fact the running back market is a little bit more competitive and there's a little bit more margin for error negotiating with it, most importantly, in fantasy than, say, wide receivers. So I really like all the points you're making. They're all salient points that I love that are being brought to my attention because it really gives me an idea that you guys are really immersed in this show and it's really starting to, make an influence. So thank you so much, Andre. You have been fantastic today. But I do want to get to some exciting prop bets here. Dalton Kincaid, like I said, if you are an ambitious person, this could be a very appealing bet to you. But another appealing bet, and I hope this one goes through because, like I said, James Cook is on my fantasy team. 70 plus receiving yards or rushing yards for James Cook at plus 135. I think that Buffalo, their game plan dramatically shifts based off their defensive inconsistencies back to kind of this time of possession game. And I think that this kind of plays into Josh Allen's hands, but I still think that James Cook will have a big part. As Andre also says, A.J. Brown is another one I'm really considering for Chase. Another guy who I really, really like. Another guy who really showed his stuff in that game in Brazil. Really was the big play threat in that Philadelphia Eagles offense. I really think that a lot of people are underrating A.J. Brown, especially because of the versatility of the Philadelphia Eagles' overall offense. But at the end of the day, you do you, man. You seem to have a fascinating concept of what you want to do and how you want to leverage and value certain players. And I admire your insight into all of your negotiating tactics, all the ways that you're looking at different players and comparing them to others. So it's really fascinating to think about. So thank you so much yet again, Andre. But let's go over our final prop bets here of the day. Tua over 265.5 yards at minus 115. This one is also kind of appealing because of the secondary issues as well. Tua will want to distribute the ball downfield, get vertical more often. I feel like he was kind of reeled in, but in the second half, he went on and had, I believe, the most passing yards of the week last week. So look for Tua to continue that as well. Another comment, I like Wilson. He's just starting the season with 2 elite corners, Ward and Snead, back to back. And Andre actually, he's calling into question my starting lineup as well. So, you know what? I had a couple more prop bets, but let's get into this to end the show because these are 2 topics that I really like. Alluding to Wilson, yeah, I believe he's having a slow start. I don't necessarily think it was all about the makeup of the Jets' offense. I really think that they had very much trouble moving the football against the potency of the 49ers defensive front. And this week, they're going to have to face L'Jarius Sneed, like you said. I'm not as worried about the Titans' offense. I'm not as worried about the Titans' defense and how it matches up against the Jets' offense as much as I was with San Fran. But it's something to keep your mind on because L'Jarius Sneed is an elite lockdown corner. But my starting lineup in fantasy this year, this is my starting week 1 lineup. I think this is relative to change week by week. So let me pull it up for you. This is the team that I personally drafted in my fantasy league. To end today's show, you can let me know in the comments in later shows because we have to keep an eye on the clock here. But this is my current fantasy team that I started in week 1. At the quarterback position, I had Brock Purdy. Didn't pay as much dividends. Had a decent game, but like I said, my running backs, James Cook and DeAndre Swift, I want to really get rid of them. I started looking into my running back room. My wide receivers, I really like, but obviously weren't up to stuff this week. And Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson, my tight end. Another guy who we talked about and wasn't up to snuff, Dalton Kincaid. And then in my flex position, I have DJ Moore. Hopefully he develops that rapport with his experience as a Chicago Bear in the recent past with Caleb Williams. My defense is Pittsburgh. Really like what they did against Atlanta this week. Keep it up with them. My kicker is Cameron Dicker. I love Dicker the kicker. Texas guy. One of the best kickers in the league. Becoming one of the best kickers. My bench, Zamir White. Disappointing start. I thought I really struck out rich with him because a lot of people liked him in fantasy purposes. The receivers are crazy. Thank you for the comment. My bench, though, I have Rashee Rice. Is it a 12-man? Says Andre. I believe that it is a 12-man. It is also a PPR league. I think this is ESPN, as Andre also says. Do you like any Keon Coleman props? I did have Keon Coleman props. Keon Coleman over 3.5 receptions, minus 110, as he also comments on my receivers as well. But Keon Coleman, thanks for that comment as well. I think that Keon Coleman will get a lot of opportunities underneath in this offense. But to conclude today's show with the rest of my fantasy team, Cole Kmet as well, not the best backup tight end, but a guy who I really like. Xavier Legette, honestly, I think the Panthers offense could do some things, but it was a pretty bad pick on my part. Then Jaleel McLaughlin and Kamani Vidal around on my bench as well. Let me continue knowing what you guys think in the comments, but we do have to end the show. Thank you for all your comments. Andre, you were fantastic today. But that will just about do it for the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. I have been Chris Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the network as a whole. Also, consider guys been doing an incredible job. I'm going to tip a donation or super chat, super things, super stickers features on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow, same time as always, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But this has been the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast.